Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever in the world you are. Welcome to this broadcast. Just want to play you a clip of the recording of what happened in China recently.
Interest in what's happening in Iran is vast, as it is with one video from the Communist Party Congress in China. It's been watched 12 million times and has people talking about the power dynamics at the very top of China's leadership.
Well, the first thing you notice from these incredible events at the Great Hall of the People is that China's former leader, when asked to leave, doesn't want to go. And you have to ask yourself, why? What's going on?
That question from the BBC's China correspondent Stephen McDonnell is one a lot of us have been asking. On Saturday, the scene was set as the Communist Party Congress drew to a close. Reporters had just been allowed in. There was President Xi, having consolidated his power. To his left was Hu Jintao, his predecessor. And then, in front of all of us watching, Hu Jintao was escorted out. Within minutes, the footage was going viral. Soon, Chinese state media reported Hu Jintao was not feeling well during the session, and that now he's much better. Certainly, as he seeks to take President Xi's notes, Hu Jintao appears confused. And he has been assisted before. This footage is from a week earlier. But some are questioning the official explanation. Global risk analyst Ian Bremer says, why publicly humiliate former President Hu Jintao? He goes on, these are power politics on full display in Beijing. But being sure of any aspect of this is hard.
It can sometimes be very frustrating trying to work out what's happened. And even though this happened in front of foreign journalists, it was out of earshot and it was very difficult to assess. You literally have to try and pick over the fine details and do guesswork.
Then, on Tuesday, more footage emerged, showing just before Hu Jintao was taken out. Mr. Hu goes to open a folder, but is stopped. Now, we don't know what was in the folder. We do know that the new Central Committee had just been announced, and that Mr. Hu's faction had been frozen out. And that's drawn the attention of the Chinese dissident and artist Ai Weiwei.
Those papers supposed to have the name of the new bureau circle of the Xi, and they must have some kind of deal before made. So, but now what the reality must be has a completely different reality.
At this stage, that's a theory, no more. But these power dynamics connect to why this moment matters.
Thank you. Like I said there in the recording, the clip is available on BBC iPlayer, and you can Google search it as well using the same title as before. This is important in the sense that we are seeing in Zimbabwe is no different from China in the sense that it is also an autocracy where there are no meaningful elections. In fact, Zanu PF has just finished their own Congress. And in it, it was supposed to be an elective Congress. In other words, leaders were supposed to be elected. But as usual, it was just a coronation because Mnangagwa's name was the only one in the head. And ever since Mnangagwa got into power, he has been surrounding himself with his supporters. And they've not been democratically elected. They're not democratically accountable to anybody except himself, of course. And what is even more interesting in this last Congress is a report that has come out that the people in Zanu PF leadership from Mashonaland Central apparently walked out at one point during the Congress itself. This has got echoes of the 2008 elections. Those of us who followed Zimbabwe politics will tell you that in 2008, uh, the March vote, Mugabe lost it. And one of the things that happened then, particularly, and it was the same province, by the way, Mashonaland Central, where Joyce Muchuru was the godfather or godmother there, if you want, was that during the elections in 2008, there was Operation Boram Sango, which is kick the ball into the bush. And basically, what they were doing there is supporters of Zanu PF and the public, the voters, were instructed to vote for Zanu PF MP candidate. But when it comes to voting for the presidential candidate, they voted for the opposition candidate, Morgan Tsvangirai. And according to the results, Morgan Tsvangirai won a staggering 73% of the vote. But before the results could be announced, Zanu PF vote rigging machinery, headed by none other than Emerson Mnangagwa himself, and he has been boasting about it too, stepped in, and for the next 6 months, the results were withheld. And when they were finally announced, the 73% for Morgan Tsvangirai had been whittled down to 47%. Just enough to force the runoff. And during the runoff, of course, the party used wanton violence to make sure that to punish people for having rejected Zanu PF and Robert Mugabe. And the rest is history. The tragedy there is after the 2008, the SADC, and full credit to them, stepped in and tried to stop a repetition of the blatant cheating and then the blatant the wanton violence that year by forcing Mugabe to form a government of national unity whose primary purpose was to implement democratic reforms to stop the repetition of 2008. Unfortunately, in the 5 years of the 2008 to 2018 GNU, not even one token reform was implemented. Not even one. And so the Zanu PF vote rigging juggernaut, which should have been dismantled completely at the end of the GNU, emerged untouched. We still have the problem of vote rigging in Zimbabwe. Zanu PF is still an autocracy, a dictatorship, a failed state, a pariah state, much the same as in China. That is the tragedy that we have got to deal with, that we must face. And that is the problem that we have in Zimbabwe. It is interesting to come back to China, that the threat of China being dragged back to the nightmare years of Chairman Mao have never really gone away, because China, even when a leader came in and he was able to revive the economy and so forth, It's because they failed to change the politics of the country. China remained, regardless of the economic successes of the last 20 years, remained an autocracy. And what um, President um, Jinping has done is brush aside the 10-year limit that had been placed on future leaders from getting back, is it 30 years ago? And now he has brushed that aside. And now this Congress, this last Congress, confirmed him that he was going to serve his third, instead of the 2-year, 5-year terms, maximum 10 years, he is now going into his third 5-year term. And it's open ended. Many people believe that he's going to be there now for life. In other words, you could easily fall back to the nightmare years of Chairman Mao. And even if he should manage to maintain the strong economic growth that China has enjoyed the last 20 years, the fact still remains that whoever comes after him will not necessarily be competent. But one thing we can be certain of, he, this mostly men in China, he is likely to want to stay in power too for more than 10 years. It's not likely to revert back to the 10-year limit. And so you could end up back to the Mao days, Chairman Mao days. And the same applies to Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe is in this political situation because we really have failed to have democratic elections, and Zanu PF has been able to come back, and Mnangagwa is now back, and forget his claims that Zimbabwe, since the ouster of the late Robert Mugabe, is now a second republic, more democratic, and so forth. Zimbabwe has not changed. Whatever, when Mugabe was booted out, Mnangagwa just took over, and it has continued down the same disastrous route. Zimbabwe is still a failed state, as it was before when Mugabe was there, and now it is when Mnangagwa is there, a pariah state, whose within the party itself there is no meaningful debate, there's no meaningful democratic competition. Mnangagwa is likely to stay there for another 5 years, and who knows if he has got the fortune of a long life, he could extend it. But even if he doesn't, it really doesn't matter. As long as you've got an autocracy, a dictatorship, the problem of bad governance will remain. This is why it is absolutely vital that we go back to the 2008 global political agreement, in which it was agreed that the country should implement far-reaching democratic reforms designed to dismantle Zanu PF's carte blanche powers to rig elections. Because as long as Zanu PF is able to rig elections, and it is rigging elections, they will be rigging next year's elections. And we will be stuck with this corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical Zanu PF dictatorship. Thank you very much. Good day.